to a new type of news series for me where I'll be covering an overview of recent Valheim news that I pick up either directly or from multiple sources as I scour the world to keep up on the latest news, sneak peeks, and hints. Some big, some small, but hopefully all interesting, helpful, or entertaining. And stick around at the end for a quick tip. Let's get started. Although we have no new patch notes released since 0.208.1 on April 11th, and the team is diligently focused on developing Mistlands, we have been able to learn quite a few interesting tidbits of information that game developer Grimcore, aka Robin, the generalist and artist extraordinaire, has been participating in. First was with one cool dude named Timo Redbeard, who regularly streams on Twitch and posts to YouTube as well. He did a really nice interview with Robin about the Mountain Cave update and touched on the Mistlands as well as everywhere else the conversation led to. Lots of interesting talk, was about 3 hours long, and you can give a listen to the whole thing at the link in the description below. It's a really great listen. Robin also had a bit of a birthday surprise on Jirok's server where we got to see Gwen the Shieldmaiden stream that communities build for him, where she was joined by some fellow Vikings, and they have a nice long chat with some good Q&A. That link is also below, and you should totally check it out. It's just shy of 2 hours, so they covered a lot of ground. So let's get to some highlights from the past week. Luma had mentioned previously in one of our Playing with the Dev episodes that some of Cult of the Wolves was still planned, and Robin confirmed to Timo that they made caves as something small of Cult of the Wolves, and they may retrofit more later. I'm in love with the idea of continuing the Cult of the Wolf somehow, said Robin. Interestingly, Cult of the Wolf originally they wanted started in the meadows and would continue to caves and maybe later. Caves is considered mid-stage of Cult of the Wolf, and they're not committing just yet about what else could be included, but it would be introduced in multiple parts. All of the rune stones related to Cult of the Wolf are not yet in-game, so they could pop up somewhere else as well. The claws that you get in caves are not actually claws from the Fenrir. They are from the Fenrir, which are really big wolves, and Robin clarified that we haven't seen them yet. He does believe that something is still missing in Mountains, and it's not complete, so there will still be more content for Mountains coming. Speaking of new content in the Mountains, they had considered having bats in the Frost Caves drop bat wings, but it didn't make sense at this point, as there was no balanced reason for that resource. But they might put that in for Mistlands to be used in a recipe of some type. Speaking of Mistlands, the team is in full Mistlands production mode. One thing some people have noticed is that there is currently no Mistlands boss stone at spawn, and some thought that might become an issue since it's an already generated location on current maps. However, this was just recently fixed by Richard, even though that area has spawned in some worlds, so we can let go of that worry. The comment was made that a couple more boss stones are coming. Of course, there are not and will not be any leaks about the Mistlands boss, because they'll never spoil a boss. We do have an interesting new tip about the recently peaked hare creature that will make its appearance in the Mistlands, and has been the subject of much surmising. Robin mentioned while talking with Gwen that the hare was really added simply because they needed something small just for hunting, but it has its own little purpose as well that we'll see later. So perhaps we don't have to worry about this being the rabbit from Monty Python after all, and it's just a nice little bunny. Speaking of nice, Robin said that he was enjoying being in the Mistlands currently, and realized that it seems like too nice of a place to be in. While he was talking to Timo, he said, "I don't feel like there's anything that's really threatening me. So this week we are bumping it up a bit." He's excited that they're trying out a new enemy devised by Richard. Now there does seem to be some back and forth on the team about how hard or easy a mob needs to be, and Robin definitely comes down on the side of wanting things to be more challenging. But I think he has a point when he says that this is Mistlands. We're mid-game, so it should be pretty difficult. The Bone Shield was brought up this week as having set a bar for how you can go farther with graphics, and they want to ride that edge. But it's also a type of limit for how not to go too far past that to keep the Valheim style. They don't want to break the style and how things look in the world. However, the gameplay and how you go about it is something that you can change, and something that he says we'll see in the Mistlands. The team has made some similar comments to this before. Like last year, Robin told me that people will be surprised in terms of what technology we head to in Mistlands, and that still keeps me curious of how they will balance that with maintaining their focus on wanting to use magical mechanics. Of course, he did also mention to me that they have their ideas for how to harvest resources in Mistlands, like besides the pickaxe, which I believe would be very welcome in the community. I understand that it's a grindy game, and I'm good with that, but it's nice to switch up the type of grind. And speaking of resources, Robin mentioned working on a cloth for Mistlands that was sent to Eric that could potentially be related to jute, but we'll see. I wouldn't hold out a lot of hope for that, since there's a pretty big divide between mountains and Mistlands, although they do like asymmetry. I'm just glad to hear that they're working on a type of cloth we could do with some more soft type items in our bases, unless he meant for an armor, but we'll get to that. Eric, by the way, is the dungeon master. It stands to reason then that the source of this mysterious cloth might be related to something in one of those mysterious dungeons that are on their way. That dungeon sneak peek does look mysterious, and the devs are enjoying that Mistlands is the last chance to be really thematic and do something quite different, because Robin says that Ashlands and Deep North will be pretty straightforward before 1.0. Noticing more and more comments about before 1.0. And if you're wondering when Valheim will end, check out this Playing with a Dev episode that I did with Robin in the link above. But they do want the Deep North to be not just cold, to have something that makes you wonder why it's there. It seems unusual or out of place there. However, the vision for Mistlands has changed dramatically since concept, which reminded me of something he told me a while back about how Richard had originally wanted spiders in the Mistlands. Originally wanted spiders. It sounds less like spiders to me again, although the community continues to take sides, with many now on Team Worm because of the Mistlands dungeon peak. However, when Timo mentioned worms, it seemed like it took Robin a beat to figure out what he meant, so maybe not worms? I'm guessing here, of course. But the point was that Deep North could become something completely different by the time we get there. Asked if we'll get anything more before Mistlands, Robin says that if something pops up, it is possible, but the team is mainly focusing on Mistlands at the moment. Jonathan is working on something, but it may go into the Mistlands as well, so hopefully, but there are no promises. Quite a lot of random things were mentioned this week as well, so let's run through some of them quickly. Robin thinks sunken crypts in the swamps will need to be redone because they are boring and become not fun and exciting after a while. 9 bosses at release sounds fair. This is interesting because this number would be the biomes we know of and includes ocean, which there has been debate about back and forth of whether the ocean would have an actual boss or not. And speaking of the oceans, Robin mentioned again that we will need to have a flying mob over the oceans and that it might even attack you on the land. Robin likes the idea of after beating the final boss, your world has a type of devolution to a harder world or some alternate realm of Valheim. Jonathan is actually working on something along those lines that would have a great replayability. They continue to have quite a few ideas for continued play after the afterlife. They don't want to implement seasons because it would break too many things. They could have a calendar if it links up to something in-game. Lanterns on ships? Lisa sent a lantern 3D model with a joking threat to Robin. At least I guess it was a joke. Ironically, there is a ship that you can spawn in, the trade ship. And Robin made a lantern on there that was a green lantern. He won't say no to lanterns on ships because ship customization will probably be added in if it makes sense. But they haven't decided on the details yet, and that would be during the Ships in the Seas update, which is still a ways off. We will be able to get close to the Yggdrasil tree in the sky, but not in the way that we think. More adjustable lighting settings in the future are probably high because they want to keep improving things. Chickens are still a maybe. Next are specifically Valheim, and someday Robin hopes to expand on them or their lore. We will be able to tame more things in the future. Fishing. Yes, Robin would like to get a less grindy way of fishing. There will be no passive fishing, but maybe a better way or a better yield probably. The system could be improved a lot. In order to make mob fights more unique, instead of everything following a set pattern or tempo, he would like enemies that have random floats in their attack that would speed up attacks at time, which would make it hard to anticipate. It could be an option that you would choose in the game and would have to be a server modifier if done that way. While visiting with Gwen, he noticed that something is wrong with the Bone Mass trophy and how it looks and asked, why is it just green? Apparently it's not supposed to be. There are different types of magic in Valheim. Yagluth was a horrible person when alive, a tyrant, and he went off to a distant land to learn a kind of magic and brought it back to teach his shamans this kind of magic. This is different than the kind of magic that the Grey Dwarf shaman used, and cultists tap into yet another kind of magic. Hopefully, we'll be able to learn more about this lore. Yes, there will be 64 or 72 degree build pieces in the future. Most likely there will be more dark wood pieces, like possibly coated core wood. Iron gates don't allow cart access easily through, and they will definitely be looking into this and getting back with us. Will there be more armor styles for different play styles? Yes. Maybe this is something to do with the mysterious cloth that will be appearing in the Mistlands? Will we be able to have dyes for our armor? Yes, most likely. It sounds like this is much farther down the road, but they do clearly see the need for everyone to not look exactly the same in their padded armor. A scythe, like a butcher knife tool or a weapon for reaping crops, does seem like a good idea, to Robin at least, and he would like to see these. We will not have diving. Sorry, guys. Milk and cheese is often asked, and Robin thinks that milk makes sense. Fun fact, they had at one time considered milking loxes. We will be getting defensive structures for bases. They've had plans for this, and we'll just have to execute it in the future. Of course, everyone always wants to know when will Mistlands be released, and the answer, as ever, is when it's ready, which is an answer that honestly, I'm okay with. I like the work that Iron Gate does on this game and their overall philosophy of putting out quality content, even in early access, which not everyone does. Also, I did want to mention, since I see comments about it, that yes, the devs are aware that the update they implemented to make things stack correctly when pulling all from your Graver chests still has some adjustments needed, and they are working on it. I also want to give a quick shout out to our server admin, Brianna, who worked tirelessly on our recent Dragon Easter Egg Island event, and it turned out to be such a well-organized, chaotic blast. Thanks, Bri. And special thanks to Tiki for building this awesome new set on the Happy Gamer server. Now for your quick tip. To help you decrease backtracking or getting lost in Mountain Frost caves, you can destroy the standing braziers to get coal, destroy doorways to get wood, and now without a workbench, you can place signs around to leave yourself messages like where you've been or which chests you left items in. Happy gaming!